I have been living without a car of my own anyway for a year and 10 months now. This was nothing I planned. My daughter needed a car, so I decided to sell her mine for about half of what it's worth, being the loving father that I am, and never got a car to replace it. And what I did was I got a trailer to hook up to my bicycle at first, and I use that to go to the grocery store, do my grocery shopping and what have you. My wife has a car, so I still drive to take her places, but anywhere I go on my own, I pretty much go by bicycle. Being without a car is not for everybody, but I think in this case it presents a perfect use case to where instead of having the two cars and the resources that it requires and the expenses are one thing, but that's minor really. I'm more focused on the resource usage, living more simply. What do we really need? So having only one car instead of two, I think that there's a lot of couples where it would be a good use case. The trailer really was sufficient for most things that I need to do. Mainly grocery shopping is what I used it for, and it was good. Except for I had to head out like 7:30 in the morning to beat the heat during the summer, but it wasn't really too bad. But I eventually, after doing this lifestyle for a while, got a Longtail e-cargo bike, which I can go any time of the day. I can throttle if I need to, but I usually pedal most of the time. Use a throttle just to start out because the thing's pretty big and heavy. But that's what I'm using now. I sold the trailer because we moved. We downsized. It's just my wife and I. The kids have been going for a while, and we just didn't want to keep up the big place with a big lot and a swimming pool, so we downsized. So I sold the trailer to make up garage space, and the grocery store is pretty close. It's like a mile and a half, so I mean it's not like I'm going out to get a workout when I go grocery shopping. It works out pretty well. I really like having the e-bike, but I do most of my miles on conventional pedaling. The e-bike allows me to go further than I normally would or would be motivated to go. One example, I was in the CSA where you buy groceries from local farmers, and they had to pick up. It was like 8 miles away, which isn't too far, and I did it once on a pedal bike, but their pickup window is like from 4 to 8. So it's usually, mid-90s by then, and pretty hot. So to go that far, I think, I'd just rather hop on the e-bike. And, I still get some pedaling in, a little bit of exercise. And like I said, it's something I can do and will do and would do more often if it wasn't so damn hot. But that's an option I chose, and I'm glad I chose it. I was anti-e-bike at first, but once I was deeper into this lifestyle, and I think for a lot of people who want to try and do things differently, e-bike would be perfect. It is really not an excuse of, I mean, if you're disabled or whatever, a different story. But for most people, even if you're not in any kind of shape at all, you're overweight, whatever, you can hop on an e-bike and go do your grocery shopping and what have you. And most trips that we do in car, you could just as easily do in an e-bike. Another factor to consider is location. I was in a rural location, and it was, pretty far just to get out of the area where I lived. I don't want to say subdivision, but the road leading into the subdivision pretty long, and so to go anywhere, it was pretty far. But I enjoyed doing it. I like riding the bicycle, and that when I started this adventure, that's where I lived. Since we moved and downsized, you heard of the 15-minute city. Well, we're like 15-minute suburb almost, and we have good infrastructure where I am, so that helps. So I understand that not everybody's going to have the infrastructure available, and there are situations and locations where it would not be as ideal as where I happen to be. So that's just something to take into consideration. For me, it's perfect. For other people, even with an e-bike, I think you could still find a way. Like I said, when I was in that rural area, I still had to, get out of the neighborhood, get out of, the roads leading into the neighborhood. But, even then I was fortunate there was a pedestrian trail that I could take most of the way, a good bit of the way, like to the grocery store. And then there was bike paths the rest of the way. So I'm in Austin, and it's pretty, I'm far out from downtown, but the infrastructure's there, so I'm grateful for that. If you don't have that, well, it's definitely a consideration. Like I said earlier, none of this was planned. I just kind of stumbled into this lifestyle. But going in, I had in my mind that there's always Uber if I need to go somewhere. My wife's out in her car. That option is available, but I have yet to exercise that option. And that's another location specific thing. Here in Austin, you catch a Uber 24 hours a day and not have to worry about it. But, more remotely, it's different. And I understand that. With the money I'm saving, and that was not really a factor, but, well, I guess it's always a factor. It's nice to save money. But, if I did need to exercise the Uber option, I could do that quite often with the money I'm saving. I'm not paying insurance. I'm not, spending $30,000 for a car that's, I'm going to have for how many ever years. So that kind of has to be, factored in. My experience with this lifestyle has been pretty incredible so far. It's just so different to hop on a bike and be out in the fresh air, be out in the open, be away from all the stress of all the cars. You have to deal with cars, but it's just not the same. It's so much stress-free, so relaxing, not be in a hurry. Like I mentioned several times before, living more simply. It's just so much more chill. You're in a car, you're always like in a hurry, and people are cutting in front of you, and I don't have that on the bicycle. I actually have the opposite, where people, I don't know what goes through their heads, but I'll pull up to a traffic light, and I'll pull like way up across the crosswalk so that they can pull up and trigger the sensor so that the light will change. But they'll be, 20 feet behind, 30 feet behind, not near the sensor to trigger it. And so I have to run the red light to get out of their way, or it'll never change because they never trigger it. And, the bicycle doesn't have enough mass to trigger it. So that's one thing. Another thing, you'll be riding along and people will just be putching around behind you, and they won't go around to pass you. And it would be better if they just passed and got out of the way. I'd be out of their way, they'd be out of my way. But no, they stay there behind, and that's probably the most stressful riding a bicycle gets, but it's not really that stressful. It's just annoying more than anything. Just get around me. I still do recreational riding, and that's another good thing. I mentioned in a previous video, I went to Festival Beach Food Forest, and it's something I'm just not going to hop in a car and drive and fight the traffic and find a place to park to explore this place that I wanted to see for quite some time and I had never been. But to hop on a bicycle and go there and do that, that just has a whole different dynamic to it. It's kind of, an adventure to get there, an adventure to explore the place, and an adventure on the ride home. I also, as far as recreation goes, I get on the bicycle and pack up the tent and whatever gear I need to stay overnight and just head out, find a place to go, camp overnight and head back. Or I did a trip earlier where I went from Austin to Denton, where my son lives. It's 340 miles. It took me 6 days. I only camped out one night, but I stayed in motels the rest of the way. Just logistically, it didn't work out where I could camp more. My original plan was to camp 2 nights, but recreational riding, that's still part of it. And I go to the Veloway in Austin, and every once in a while I'll just time myself, see what I can do. I'm not very fast, and I don't really train to be fast. I really just enjoy taking it slow and enjoying what's around me, just experiencing life, not be closed up in a box and stressing about things and if you're going to get there on time or whatever. So recreational riding, yeah, I enjoy it. So it's my pastime. Keeps me out of trouble. So basically, most of what I do, I don't need a car. I go grocery shopping, I go to the bank, I pick up my CSA order, go to the farmer's market, go to pick up some smoothies or whatever, bring them home, and just the daily necessities are all within reach on a bicycle. There are exceptions. I mean, I'm not going to go to Home Depot and bring home a door on the bicycle, even on the e-cargo bike. Heavy stuff like that. But I could even get smaller stuff. But I go to Sam's and get them big boxes of toilet paper and big bags of paper towels, and I can carry all that. I don't even need to, I've done that even without the e-bike. I have a little grid that I can put on the rack of my conventional bike, and I've done that several times, but I kind of like not having the grid on there, so I use the e-bike more often for that. Actually, exclusively now. I haven't really put that grid back on since I took it off, but it's possible. So, do you really need a car? I think in today's world, you need a car even if it's somebody else that you're paying to use their car, like an Uber or what have you. But I think if I was on my own, I don't think I would get a car. I would use that option if I needed to, but I would do everything on bicycle. Most of the things you can do on a bicycle, which I think would be so much better off. Good for you, good for everybody else. You're not out there creating more traffic. You're getting an exercise. You're not polluting. You're not using the resources, the extra car that you have for X amount of years, and it sits in a junkyard, and just the resources, even the electric cars, as I mentioned in the previous video, it takes 400 e-bike batteries to make an electric vehicle, and I have the dual battery e-bike, so 200 times what I have of lithium resources to have an electric car. And the bicycles last forever. I have two 40-year-old bikes. One's 41 years old, one's 40 years old. I like the older bikes. A lot of the advancements are just, unnecessary, wasteful. Just all these bikes just, could have a much better life, but people, upgrade. They got to upgrade. Always have the latest, greatest, shiniest. And me promoting simple living. Well, these 40-year-old bikes are great. I went to Denton, and it wasn't a 40-year-old bike. It was 2008, I think. It's almost 20 years old, 18 years old. It's easily going to pass that 40-year mark. And once I have 40 years, I don't know, how much longer I'll be here, but get another 20 years out of them easily, I think, if I'm still around, which I hope to be. I'm only 66, but I'm going to stay active as much as I can the rest of life, barring, any unforeseen incident. I'll still have these, 60-year-old bikes at the time. And if you can live, doing most things on a bike, using a car when you need it, but do things on most of the things on a bike, well, you'll just saving so much. Saving your well-being, being less stressful, getting exercise yourself, not polluting, not using the resources. It's a good deal all around.